to your team. I just briefly want to express our thanks to you, and I hope that you will extend our thanks, and indeed the thanks of Governor Cuomo, to the rest of the many members of the Central New York Regional Council, and indeed the members of all the many work groups that you have, because I guess we know, but we want to recognize publicly that this is in effect a kind of culminating event every year, these presentations by the regional councils. But leading up to it, there is so much work done by so many volunteers under your leadership and under the leadership of the executive committee, and if I can say with the support of my friend and colleague Jim Fail. But there's so much work and done by so many of you. We see this in all 10 of the presentations where we have the privilege to review both yesterday and today. And for that we are just extremely grateful. And also, we're here with eager anticipation, since your region, Central New York, has always done so well in the regional council competition, if you will. And this year we have special features which we know you've been working very hard to develop, the initiatives around Global New York, around special services for veterans, and beyond. So welcome again, and thank you again. We look forward to your presentation. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Ken. Rob, I'm going to ask you to introduce the team, and you guys can get started whenever you're ready.
Okay, for those of you who don't know, Rob Simpson. I'm the president of the Center State Corporation for Economic Opportunity based in Syracuse, New York.
And I'm Kent Siverud, the new chancellor at Syracuse University.
And Jim Fail, regional director with Empire State Development.
And I think I'm going to get us started quickly, if I could, as the new guy and new to Central New York. It's been a very fast education in the Regional Economic Development Council work, and I just want to say I am really awed by the degree to which this is really a team effort, as you described. Attending the meetings and seeing the folks from the nonprofit sector, the for-profit sector, and government work together and kind of leave their hats at the door and be honest about challenges and opportunities in the region has been really inspiring to me. And I think it's a tribute to Rob Simpson and his leadership and his ability to be straightforward and honest about both strengths and weaknesses about things we face. So it's been a joy working on this. We're going to present a lot of successes that we've had in Central New York under the REDC process since 2011, bring you up to speed with that progress, particularly in the past year, and some important initiatives that we're using to drive the growth of the economy. And we're going to be describing some of our priority projects that we recommend for funding. I hope you'll be amazed, as I have been, just how much cutting-edge work happens in Central New York, and in particular that you'll see that many of the key initiatives that we've been asked to develop this year as part of the themes of the effort are ones where the Central New York region has been engaged in a leadership role for some time. And that's particularly in being national recognized experts in improving the lives of veterans, working to build export opportunities for businesses, and making sure that low-income residents have an opportunity to participate in the economy. We've been deeply focused on these this year as part of this effort, but we've really been deeply focused on them through partnerships across the country and the region long before that. Our strategic plan builds on that history of collaboration and innovation and strategic planning, and has three overarching goals that you see on the slide. They are strengthening targeted industry concentrations that leverage our unique economic assets. They focus on improving competitiveness in and connections to the regional, national, and particularly global economies. And finally, revitalizing our region's urban cores, main streets, and neighborhoods. As to the first, the targeted industry concentrations, our region is investing in projects that produce jobs and economic activity focused on the industries that are deeply interconnected to our assets, our communities already. And these assets include the work that Central New York research institutions and entrepreneurial centers like the Tech Garden are doing to drive innovation and business development. In terms of the regional, national, and global economies and our connections and competitiveness with them, we believe we have to make strategic investments to further develop our workforce, to access markets outside our region, by exporting more goods and services, and by improving the climate for investing in homegrown businesses. In terms of urban cores and main streets and neighborhoods, we have been pushing for investments that further develop our municipal centers, improve our established neighborhoods, and we do this because we know the region's quality of life and economic opportunity have the greatest potential, particularly in our villages and in our urban areas.
Great. Thank you, Chancellor. One of the reasons I guess I'm particularly excited to have the Chancellor as our new partner, we've been at this long enough to have seen projects from conception to completion. Therefore, I think it is really helpful for us to have new perspectives as members of the council who can come in and help us, as the Chancellor talked about, be honest about what's working and what's not. But I want to take a few moments to tell you about a few things that are working. This is a round one project. So this project was conceived more than 3.5 years ago. Cayuga Milk Ingredients. This is a coalition of 29 dairy farmers in Cayuga County, New York, who came together, banded their resources, built a $101 million fluid milk processing facility to take milk from local cows, to dewater that milk, and they are now selling 70% of the powdered milk being made in that facility in Asia. This is a remarkable opportunity to take a sector of our economy, such as agriculture, add value to that, and then capture global value and bring that back here to the United States. All told, 58 jobs. The facility is fully constructed, and the first milk began to be processed on June 1st of this year, a project that would not have happened without the support of the state of New York. Not only are we investing in strategic industries, but we are also being very intentional about investing in the infrastructure necessary to help those industries be competitive in getting goods to market. The Port of Oswego has been a vastly underutilized asset in central New York for many, many years. And through 2 projects in rounds 1 and 2, we have improved road access, truck access, and a rail line at the port. Most recently, also worked with them on a grain loading machine that is allowing for a cheaper cost of loading for family farms in upstate New York to put their products on containers that can be shipped internationally. This is helping to lower the cost of access to those markets for New York-based producers, and is having a pretty significant impact on Oswego in particular. Third, we, as the Chancellor talked about, we're also investing in neighborhoods, and you all are very familiar. You've all been to the Syracuse Inner Harbor. Mayor Driscoll certainly knows firsthand about the long time nature of this as a priority for our region and for our community. Because of state investments in infrastructure in rounds 1 and 2, we are now not only seeing a revitalized harbor, but we're seeing private sector investment. Just earlier this year, the governor joined us to break ground on a hotel, and a loft hotel right adjacent to the waterfront. And now we are going to be breaking ground here in the next few weeks on a round 2 regional council project, rapid response monitoring, about 1 block removed from the hotel project in the Inner Harbor. 175 new jobs as a part of their expansion. The state investments are giving the private sector confidence to invest and to create jobs in the immediate vicinity. All told, over 3 rounds, we're very proud of the fact that we've leveraged through the council work almost $1 billion, over $1 billion of investment in total payroll. Over 2,500 net new jobs have been expected from those projects. Maybe as importantly, we've been very diligent about ensuring that the benefits from this regional council process are distributed fairly and evenly around our region. The distribution of breakdown in terms of the funding and jobs and the awards have been pretty consistent with our population breakdown across the 5 counties in our geography, and that is something that we take very seriously. Most importantly, I want to draw your attention to the fact that 86% of the projects that have been funded through these 3 rounds either started or are currently on schedule. That is a very high percentage rate. We take that work as stewards of state dollars very, very seriously. More importantly, though, this process, as you all challenged us at the beginning, is more than just about capital projects and physical investments. It really drives to the core of what our region's strategy is, what are our assets, what are our challenges, and how are we going to take ownership of our economic future to build jobs and create long-term wealth for Central New York and for the entire state. So I want to talk about a couple of key initiatives that highlight our creativity and our strategy. First, as you all have seen in our report, our healthcare industry is a critical driver of our economy. All told, almost 2,300 employees in the healthcare sector in our region. We are working hard to help our healthcare system, our hospitals, our doctors, and our practice groups find new markets for their services. We do not want to be reliant on being simply a regional healthcare center, but we believe there are skills within that industry that are relevant to markets beyond our region. Case in point, we are currently working on medical tourism initiatives in 2 areas. First in Canada and primarily in Ontario and Ottawa, and secondarily in China, of all places, working to attract folks who are looking for high quality healthcare. In the case of Canada, for instance, the real market driver is the long wait times that folks have for their national healthcare system. So we're bringing people across the border for things like orthopedic procedures. In China, it's a demand for high quality healthcare and also privacy as it relates to that healthcare. Pursuing things like cosmetic surgery, orthopedics, diabetes care, stress relief, and oncology are the real market drivers, and currently having discussions about cross-border initiatives.
One of the key strategies is to focus on the problem of businesses growing and then leaving the region to find investors and capital elsewhere. And the council has for some years discussed how to deal with that and the need for a venture fund for the region. And that strategy discussion emphasized that there's a time and a place to ask the state for support, and there's a time and a place for us to put our money where our mouth is. And on this one, we have done it. After much planning, Center State CEO launched Armory Square Ventures this past May with an initial capital call of $15 million. Syracuse University was a lead investor. This is a regional venture capital fund that targets the region's best innovations, entrepreneurs, and businesses. And the launch of it is a direct result of the work of the council, and particularly the Innovate Upstate Transformational Initiative team under the council. We've created an early stage investment vehicle to fill what is a critical gap in capital and investment in the region, and that's particularly companies seeking private growth capital in the $500,000 to $2 million range to accelerate growth. A fundraising strategy is in place for this. We have a minimum goal of $40 million, and a managing partner has been hired to oversee the fund's operations and investments.
The chancellor's being modest. Without the support of Syracuse University, this fund would not have come together, along with 21 other limited partners in that fund. We are hoping that they will make their first active investment in a regional startup business next week. They plan to close on that first investment. So a tremendous amount of work has gone into this. The third thing I want to highlight is the importance of the fact that we look to the state as being a partner, not just with respect to capital support for projects, which is very important, but that there are many other ways that regions and states can engage, and the state can engage to improve our communities. As you all know, a couple of years ago, the state passed enabling legislation to allow communities such as Syracuse to create land banks, an innovation that we've seen primarily coming out of Michigan. And we've been very successful in implementing actually the state's first land bank in Syracuse, something we're incredibly proud of. Vacancy and blight in our neighborhoods is a significant challenge, not only in our city, but across the state. We are having great success with our land bank. All told, to this point, our land bank's acquired more than 436 vacant properties throughout the region. Maybe as importantly, the process of having the land bank has allowed the city of Syracuse to collect, and the county of Onondaga to collect more than $7.3 million in tax collections over and above what they were collecting before we had this legislation. And we've returned to the property tax rolls more than $2.8 million in assessed value on that property, which is generating continual revenue for a city and a community that is, as you all know, challenged fiscally. This is helping us regain control of properties in our neighborhood that we had lost control of, It is helping us with our neighborhood redevelopment strategies, and it's helping us with the fiscal condition of our communities. And we would not be in a position to do this if it weren't for the great work of the Department of State, ESD, in helping to design and develop and implement this program. So the big question is, where do we go for here, and what are our priorities for round 4 in the Regional Council? And I'll speak to those briefly. Overall, as you've seen in our submission, we're asking for support for 36 priority projects. Again, we have taken an approach that suggests that there is no one silver bullet solution to the economic circumstance in Central New York or anywhere around the state. Over $200 million in capital investment and another $100 million in payroll associated with those 36 projects. All told, the opportunity to create just under 900 jobs. Every single one of these projects is aligned with our strategy. Those 3 top-line goals that the Chancellor mentioned are first and foremost in our mind, and we've been very disciplined about ensuring that we're funding projects that support those strategies. I want to talk about one that you all had the chance to see when you were in Syracuse for the tours last year. Put simply, the Hotel Syracuse is an iconic property in the heart of downtown Syracuse. For a downtown that has experienced almost $2 billion in reinvestment over the course of the last 5 years, this property stands as a stark reminder of the work that remains to be done. For more than 10 years, our community has gone without a convention center hotel. That has cost us over $50 million in lost tourism business and conventions and others that we have lost because of the fact that we do not have a flagship convention center hotel. This has been a priority for our county executive ever since she took office. Most recently, Mayor Miner stuck her neck out quite candidly and took this property by eminent domain. She did that because for many years, this property was challenged not by a lack of community interest, but by lack of control, owned by absentee landlords who had no interest in being a part of the revitalization of our community. So working together with our mayor, our county executive, our state delegation, we have identified a developer, we control the property, and we are pooling the resources needed to pull off a $60 million rehab construction project that will create 160 new jobs and that will give us the flagship convention center hotel that we need in order to fully leverage the tourism economy in Central New York. Every single person in our community, I've been back in Syracuse now 11 years, everyone has a Hotel Syracuse story. They went to a wedding there, they had their prom there, and we want to ensure that future generations of Syracusans, people like my son, have an opportunity to experience the same and have a Hotel Syracuse story going forward. Second, another major priority, and this is one that speaks to our hopes and aspirations for building the new economy in Central New York. We're very excited about the most significant cross-regional collaboration that we have undertaken in Central New York, and we suspect perhaps across the state. For the last 2 years, the Mohawk Valley and Central New York have been combining to put their efforts behind the development of a FAA test site for the testing and integration of unmanned aerial systems into the commercial airspace. Back in January of this year, we were notified by the FAA that we were one of 6 chosen test sites across the entire country from a pool of more than 50 applicants. And that test site designation has given us a unique opportunity to sell into an industry that is estimated to be an $82 billion a year industry by the year 2025. We're asking for support this year jointly between the Mohawk Valley and Central New York to allow us to install state-of-the-art radar and sensor technologies that will make the test site here in upstate New York the most technologically advanced platform for the testing of UAS anywhere in the United States. It's something we're very excited about. It's something that ESD has been a tremendous partner for us on. John Gilstrap has worked very hard to put an interagency task force together to engage with us, and we're actively out talking at this point to more than 100, going on 120 companies that we are in contact with about economic development opportunities associated with this effort. Third, this project speaks to our consistency. Back in round 1, you'll recall that one of the projects that we requested support for was Owera Vineyards. It was actually the first project that was completely finished in the first round. That was part of a burgeoning Madison County beverage trail, something that we've heard from county officials for many years has been a priority for them. This is the latest in a line of investments that we've made along that beverage trail in Madison County. 2 young entrepreneurs with a passion for beer making, using locally grown hops, looking to create 16 new jobs and taking an underutilized piece of property in Madison County and turning it into the state's most recent farmstead brewery. And finally, SBB, a perfect example of the types of businesses that we believe thrive in Central New York. This is a relatively small but very advanced manufacturer, primarily dealing in air handling systems. Basically, what they make are entire clean room systems. And you think about the opportunity set for a company like this that is a supplier to that chain, given the investments that the state of New York is making in nanotechnology. There are opportunities in Albany, there are opportunities certainly in Utica and all across the state, and frankly around the world, for a company like this that has a world-class technology and a world-class system to be competitive. Every year you give us homework assignments, and we take those assignments seriously. This year we were thrilled with 2 of the assignments you gave us because we think they play quite candidly to our regional strengths, speaking about the need to better include veterans in our workforce and the opportunities for our region to connect to wealth that's being created globally. We'll speak briefly about all of these. I will tell you, one of the things we are very focused on this year has been expanding our project pipeline. We've watched now over 4 years the types of applications that have come through. We are doing far more hands-on individual outreach with businesses, helping them understand these opportunities, and businesses of all sizes, not just our larger employers that understand the system, but figuring out how to spread the message of opportunity down into our small business community as well. And we believe that some of the strategies we deployed this year provided some great success for us. Speak to the opportunity agenda for just a moment. We have, as you all know, in Central New York, we've spent many years trying to pilot, and frankly, Syracuse University deserves a lot of credit in the work they've done on the Near West Side, the work that Center State CO and other partners with St. Joseph's Hospital have done on the north side of Syracuse, trying to build better connectivity between economic growth and economic opportunity, ensuring that people of all stripes, the on and underemployed, have a chance to participate in the economic growth that we are driving. We received last year a $100,000 opportunity agenda grant from the state of New York, and I'm proud to tell you that we've leveraged that now into more than $1 million of investment from our local philanthropic community. So we're now taking that pool of resources and putting it to work, not just the pilot initiatives in the healthcare system as we did, but now increasingly moving those partnerships into other sectors of the economy, including manufacturing. The Lieutenant Governor joined us just about a month ago to announce our newest partnership with Loretto, our nursing home facility that needs to hire 100 CNA professionals over the course of, by the end of this year. Within the month and a half since we announced this partnership, we've already worked to place 42 of those 100 people in that program. And this is a perfect example of employers that have demand for occupations working with the workforce community and the support services community to identify populations that might not have otherwise been able to participate in those jobs. Chancellor?
I'm going to talk a bit about the agenda item in veterans and just start with the ending point. I think there's no other region in the United States that's better positioned to support our nation's veterans than Central New York. I just want to say that again and emphasize that it is not an exaggeration. There is no other region in the country better positioned to support our nation's veterans than Central New York. That's true for a bunch of reasons. We're very proud of New York State and its initiatives in the veterans area, and particularly in this last legislative session on helping veterans and military personnel and their families, including in access to education, including setting a 6% goal for state contract by disabled veteran-owned businesses, including expanding entrepreneurship assistance programs. We're very proud of the history in Syracuse, where our university is the university that embraced veterans after World War II when others did not. We tripled in size in 18 months. We tripled in size in 18 months, which is an extraordinary story. And following that, we have found embracing veterans and embracing best practices for veterans and military is good for the region and good for the university. We found that veteran-owned businesses, by the very nature of having people with military service, produces people who are, as you see, entrepreneurial, highly educated, have advanced training that can transfer skills to the civilian workforce, exhibit high levels of trust, adaptable to diverse situations, and strong organizational commitment and team building skills. We have 900,000 veterans in New York State. More than 60% of them are in upstate New York, 50,000 in central New York. We have, since 9/11, 2.5 million veterans who've made the transition in this country from military service, and over the next 5 years, 300,000 veterans a year transitioning to the civilian workforce. That indicates that there is a huge opportunity to attract veterans into the central New York economy, whether they already live in the region or not. We are uniquely positioned to respond to that opportunity and to lead the way nationally. We have at Syracuse University in the Institute for Veterans and Military Families already the nation's premier academic institution focused on advancing the vocational lives of veterans and transitioning military personnel. Not a day goes by since I've been in this job, not a single day, when a major corporation, a major employer, a government leader from all around the country does not come to Syracuse for advice and help in this area. The region is also home to the Veterans Higher Education Resource Consortium, which works with dozens of colleges and universities across upstate New York to advance educational and vocational needs of veterans. We have in the Syracuse VA Medical Center what is widely regarded as the best VA medical center in the country. It attracts veterans from around the state and particularly across upstate New York. We have a growing portfolio of resources and initiatives within our workforce development system. This includes public entities like our local New York State Department of Labor office, a network of human resource professionals, business associations from Center State CEO, the Manufacturers Association of Central New York, working directly with private sector employees. We have our act together in this area, and we're very focused. Strategically, we focused this year on how to do even more. We assembled a veterans work group under the council that's developed a strategic framework to further advance workforce opportunities, and it has adopted a strategy. We are going to catalog all current veterans programs to better understand the veteran support ecosystem and to coordinate it. The goal is to identify and implement best practices in every area across that network to improve our veterans outreach for programs such as Startup New York, and to attract more veteran-owned businesses into the CFA funding process. We are second going to align the region's veterans' engagements with the workforce system. There is already a robust workforce system in place to help anyone find a job, but we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Our goal is to better promote the programs that employers use to attract talent, and to better promote the public and private sector services that in fact have helped veterans make the transition from military services. We have in our work with the IVMF and its collaboration with the 100,000 Jobs Initiative of the New York Department of Labor Disabled Veterans Outreach Program. We have a lot of experience and best practices in this area, and we intend to seed them. The last identification by the work group of our priorities is to catalyze veteran entrepreneurship by developing programs and opportunities tailored to our regional veteran population through Syracuse University's IVMF and the Whitman School of Management, and through startup hubs like the Syracuse Tech Garden and Startup New York. The goal is to to build a stronger network for veterans looking to start a business or to grow their business by extending their reach into the marketplace. We have a lot of experience in that in Syracuse. We trained 20,000 veterans to start business nationally over the last few years. In addition to that strategy, you will find in the Council's progress report dozens of examples that show how veterans can contribute to the economy, and particularly how their skills and experiences contribute to virtually every important industrial sector in our region, from agriculture to advanced manufacturing. So I am very impressed by our focus on this. I should say, in addition, our university is committed to being the best university in the United States for veterans. We have a head start on that. We have a lot of work to do to get even better, but we're committed to the resources to do that and to work with our partners in the region, including the VA and including the Regional Economic Development Council, to really be a leader in the region and the country for this.
I think we found the right partner at the right time. I've mentioned to you before the work that we've done. We're very proud of the fact that when the president announced that he wanted to double exports out of the United States in 5 years, that Syracuse and Central New York were one of the 5 pilot communities selected to demonstrate how that might be done. Los Angeles, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Portland, Oregon, and Central New York were the 4 places chosen. We've learned a lot about our economy in that process. Tremendous research. We know that about just over 10% of our regional GDP is generated by exports. We know that we have a huge number of people who are employed in our region that are coming from foreign-owned businesses. The thing that has been most impressive to me, and that sticks in my mind, is not how our region is currently performing, but the size of the market opportunity. Between 2000 and 2020, the global GDP will more than double, from 17 trillion to 35 trillion. Right? This at a time when 83% of the growth over the next 4 years is projected to come from outside of the United States. So if we want to compete for that wealth that's being created around the world, we have to be more globally engaged. And I applaud this group and the governor for the leadership in putting forward the Global New York Initiative. We absolutely need to have aligned strategies at the statewide level if we're going to win this economic competition, and it is a competition. So how are we doing this? One, we've partnered again with the Mohawk Valley. The Global New York strategy that we've submitted to you is a joint strategy with our partners in the Mohawk Valley, where we plan to share resources, share information, and collectively implement the various strategies below. First and foremost, we have streamlined the service delivery process. Dozens of service providers across our region that are now working through the Central New York International Business Alliance as the primary point of contact for a company who's looking to do business internationally. All told, more than 150 businesses have already taken advantage of the dedicated professional staff that work for the CNY-IBA, having real and tangible and immediate impacts on their bottom line and their ability to compete globally. Second, we are also very focused on training. At the end of the day, one of the things that we find from companies is that more often than not, businesses are not intentional about their global strategy. They take an order that's come from overseas, that comes from online, they follow a customer of theirs internationally, but they aren't thinking intentionally about how they pursue those markets. We developed a program with our partners called Export New York. I think we have 10 companies that are going through that program this semester, and they are emerging with a complete implementable export plan that allows them some clarity in terms of how they expend their resources to chase these markets. We are securing federal resources. We recently won a Market Development Cooperator Program grant from the Department of Commerce, and in November we'll be taking a dozen companies with us to Singapore in the digital electronics devices market to sell products to that very rapidly expanding market. Over 3 years, at the end of the day, this is about results, right? Over 3 years, exports out of Central New York have increased by more than 30%. That equates to an additional $1 billion of export volume coming out of Central New York. And if you believe the Department of Commerce numbers, that constitutes 5,600 net new jobs being supported by export activity in our region, something we are extremely proud of. Recently, this got driven home for me. I had a chance at the beginning of August to take a trip over to China. And I consider myself to be a relatively well-traveled individual. I've been to 33 countries on 3 continents. I was totally and completely unprepared for what I saw. The pace and the scale of development in China is staggering. This is a country that in 1970 had per capita income of $121 per person. Today, that number is closer to 9,000, and while that doesn't sound like a lot, per capita income in China has increased 5x in the last 15 years. Think about that as we talk about our challenges with connecting the unemployed and underemployed to jobs and poverty. Their per capita income has increased 5x in 15 years. And what that means is that today they have a middle class that is 400 million people in China, a middle class that wants goods and services. And this is a huge market opportunity for people here in the United States, for our manufacturers and service providers to sell into those markets. While we were in China, we signed MOUs on things like agriculture, on tourism, on foreign direct investment through programs like EB5, and other very exciting partnerships that we'll be talking more about in the coming weeks and months. But I just want to provide you this one picture. This is the Pudong region of Shanghai in 1990, and again in 2010. To give you a sense of the pace and scale of what's happening in China and in other parts of the world, they built Manhattan in 20 years, right? They are running at a pace that is at both times terrifying and thrilling. The market opportunity is huge, but we cannot wait. This global New York strategy is perfectly timed for us to capitalize on being partners in the economic wealth that's being created in China. And we're looking forward to working with the state on that. It's also a good reminder of how we have to do better here at home. One of the things that you have challenged us with last year was to better engage our local government officials in this work. I am particularly proud of the work that the County Executive Mahoney and Mayor Stephanie Miner have done, already working together to streamline governmental processes. They have been working to merge things like their planning department. They've combined their purchasing departments. They're beginning the process of streamlining government. The reality is that we have 4.52 units of local government in our footprint for every 10,000 residents. That is almost 9x the national average, and it is an absolutely incredible challenge as we think about how we can do a better job of positioning ourselves to compete in that global economy. At the end of the day, we have more than 200 independently elected officials in Onondaga County alone. And we have an obligation, I believe, to do a better job and to make sure that we as a community are better positioned to fight for that value that's being created all over the region. We have business, we have labor, we have towns and villages, we have our city and our county participating actively in a mutual discussion about how we can build a better system to deliver services and to do it in a more effective and more efficient way. And this is an effort that we are going to be paying a lot of attention to over the coming weeks and months. At the end of the day, though, this is all about results. I'll give you a snapshot of our dashboard that we use to track our performance, and you'll see in most cases we're doing a pretty good job. We're proud of the fact that private sector jobs are growing, but they're not growing as fast as the national average. Our job growth rate over the course of the last year was 2.2% compared to 4% nationally. We still have not yet fully recovered from the recession to get back to our total job numbers. Everything else on this chart is either in the green or pretty stable. Population's a hard number to track, as you know, in the off years, but I do want to draw your attention again to our regional poverty rate. This is something that is a persistent challenge. It's not just a challenge in urban Syracuse, but it's also a challenge in rural Oswego, and something that we need the state's partnership on if we're going to better tackle connecting people to employment opportunities and lifting people out of poverty. I'm very proud of the work the council has done. This has been a labor of love for everybody who's been involved in it, those who've been involved for many years and those like the Chancellor who are just joining us now. The time and energy that goes into it is remarkable. The discipline required to stick to our strategy is something I think has been a hallmark of our council. The creativity to come up with new programs like the Metropolitan Export Initiative, like the National Fund for Workforce Solutions work that's driving our opportunity agenda, I think is remarkable. We've also had to be very honest with ourselves about the things that are working and the things that aren't, which is sometimes a difficult thing to do in a public forum like the regional councils, but I hope it has helped differentiate us from some of the competition. This year, we've also learned some great lessons. The public who is engaging with us are bringing forward great ideas. We were challenged by a group of small businesses this year to think about how we could do a better job at connecting our local business community to some of these investments that the state of New York is making. So we now have a task force of locally grown businesses that are thinking about how to better encourage the use of local suppliers in the value chain for all of these regional economic development council projects. And I would just say the role as stewards of state dollars is something that we take very seriously, and every single one of us is committed to having this process be a successful one, not only for our region, but for the entire state. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me quickly introduce the other members of the SEAT team. Jerry Boone is the Commissioner of the New York State Civil Service Commission. Roanne DeStito is the Commissioner of the Office of General Services. Matthew Driscoll is the President of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation. and he says he's been to Syracuse once or twice.
Good morning.
Morning.
Tom Maddox is on the other end. He's the Commissioner of Taxation for our state. We've got Colonel Eric Hesse, who's the Director of the Division of Veterans Affairs in our state, and a federal official that's participating in this effort is Patrick Kerwin, who is the Director of the Trade Promotion Coordinating Committee in the federal government. He's interested in global New York. Let me ask a relatively direct question. I am probably as perturbed as you are about the fact that you've got this very high poverty rate. I also noticed you continue to lose population. I was impressed by the thought that you got $100,000 that you leveraged and made it $1 million. How did you do that, and how did you employ that $1 million, given the challenges you face in your region?
So it's a great question. We are just in the process of beginning to deploy that additional $1 million that we've secured. That funding has come from a coalition of philanthropic and community partners, people like our United Way, our Community Foundation, the Allen Foundation, Gifford Foundation, and others who see the value in connecting economic development efforts that are focused on driving top-line growth and community development and workforce development efforts that are traditionally focused on connecting people to employment. At the end of the day, we cannot lift people out of poverty if we don't have jobs. So bringing the private sector into that conversation in a way that helps us first aggregate the demand for jobs in the community, and then two, engage those employers in the process of in the training process. We are also doing a lot of work driven by our community partners, and particularly the CBOs, to help us pre-screen prospective applicants from neighborhoods and parts of our region that are sometimes forgotten in the workforce system, engaging them directly in training programs that are supervised by the employers, and most importantly, working to align the CBO supports services with that workforce system. So we are delivering not just a workforce training program, but a workforce training program with an employer who is ready to hire someone, and a set of services that can help people access that job, stay in that job, and overcome some of the barriers that sometimes exist to them holding on to that job. The net result has been, through all the pilot programs we've run, a placement rate of over 85% through those programs, and a retention rate over 80% as well. So we think that those are dollars that have been well invested at innovating inside the workforce development system.
Thank you. Commissioner Boone.
Thank you, and thank you for your obvious hard work and robust activities that you have going. My question is, you have a lot of good things happening, the interregional collaboration, global, your veterans initiatives, leveraging investments, neighborhood revitalization. How do you feel about the pace of all this in terms of creating sort of a cogent momentum? How would you assess that, or is there something else that you would do at this stage to give even more impetus, because you're trying to make a transformation shift here? So I'm just curious how you're thinking about where you are, and what are your other thoughts about furthering that momentum?
Well, maybe I'd be a good person to take a stab at that, just because while I grew up in upstate, I've been away for a while. So what I would say is there is a tangible sense of momentum in Syracuse in the last few years. And I think that's true because of the leadership in government and the private sector over the last probably 10 to 15 years. And it's, for someone coming who hasn't been there for 10 years, to then come and see what's happened is extraordinarily impressive. And both in the urban development and in the sense of possibilities and optimism. I see that as an outsider by visiting the Tech Garden, by talking to people interested in the venture fund, but also by seeing the degree to which the community has coalesced and the economic development forces really coalesced into a coherent team, which was candidly, I came from St. Louis, which had many of the same challenges in terms of fragmented local government, some of the implications of which we're all aware of from events this summer. It has been very impressive to me the degree to which people actually talk to each other and work together both in the private sector and the public sector through this effort. So I'm pretty optimistic about the pace accelerating in the years ahead.
Commissioner DeStito.
Thank you. Very well done, and as usual, very comprehensive and giving us a really good bird's eye view of what's going on in Central New York. I just want to focus on you talked a little bit about it with the mayor and the county executive and so local governments and trying to kind of right-size governments. But I want to go in a different direction and talk about local governments and their infrastructure projects and funding that they receive. How do you intersect with their priorities, what the local governments are looking at throughout the region, and how you can intersect an REDC initiative and the efforts on behalf of the REDC?
Yeah, we have prioritized outreach this year to local government constituencies. I will say that I think one of the places where we saw some of the best input into the process about the priority of the local government, individual local governments, was through our elected officials that participate in the process. Both Bill Magnarelli and Senator DeFrancisco, who represent the respective houses, were very active in ensuring that our council as a whole understood what those funding priorities were from local towns and villages and so on, which was extremely helpful. Could we do a better job? I think we always could. I think the reality is that we have watched over the course of the last several years more and more applications coming in from local governments for infrastructure type projects. The demand is clearly there, and I think through programs like New York Works and others, the state is doing everything they can to respond to that. But if I had to guess, I think the number of applications we'll see next year is going to increase again. If I may say, I think the level of resources dedicated to addressing the problem are not yet sufficient to the need that we see from those localities. Some of that is on us to be creative about things like public-private partnerships that can be used to better support those investments. But it is a real and growing challenge that we see in every part of our region.
Thank you. I'm concerned that matching economic development projects with what maybe a local government is doing with a road project or something like that, to make sure that, they're intersecting and really matching up with each other.
I will say, I think, on that specific point, I think the state agency teams that have been assigned to us have been very helpful, whether it's Department of Transportation, Department of State. When the council has identified a project as a priority, the agencies have bent over backwards to try to ensure that what they are doing supports those projects. There's probably something that could be done in the reciprocal direction that we may want to take a look at as well.
Thank you.
Mayor Driscoll.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your presentation, very efficient and thoughtful as usual, and I really appreciate your use of metrics, Rob, that you have done consistently well over the years. I have a question on, you adopted the Vision CNY as part of your plan, really to look at ways to identify and develop communities in their efforts in terms of solar energy planning and so forth going forward. Cayuga comes to mind with me on this very topic. Can you talk a little bit about that and how maybe that plan has rolled into other of your efforts and your planning efforts?
Yeah, I can say that the Vision CNY sustainability plan is certainly, given our region's long history of innovation in sort of green and clean technology, driven by a lot of the work Syracuse University has done at the Center of Excellence, is first and foremost in a lot of people's minds. I think over the course of the last two rounds in particular, we've seen a lot of projects that have come forward that look to take advantage of those resources. Some of the residential construction being done at the Inner Harbor that's been such a priority for the governor and others is being done with geothermal heating systems. In Auburn, certainly investments through their hydroelectric technology, as you're well aware. These are tremendous projects. There's no question that we are in a position, I think, in Central New York to provide a leadership role as it relates to sustainability. We've had a leadership position in that space. I think we want to maintain a leadership position in that space. But everyone around the state rightfully is catching up in this regard.
Colonel Hesse.
Again, thank you for your presentation today, and certainly your focus on veterans. Anybody that is in the business of dealing with veterans, I think, knows the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University and what they're working on in terms of delivery of services, and not just in Central New York, but really nationally, programs that they're doing. But back to the Central New York piece, you have a lot of veterans that come to Syracuse University to go to school. You have a lot of veterans that transition through the specific programs that they run. But how do you translate that into getting veterans to stay in Central New York or New York in general to keep their talents here?
So that's precisely what we've been focused on in our internal strategy at the university. What I'd say is, first of all, work hard to attract a larger veteran population to the universities in the region, and work hard to enable veterans who often enter higher education through community colleges or for-profit institutions now to transition at the appropriate point to higher education institutions that are most likely to lead into business starting or employment areas. And so we're very focused on that strategy, building on fairly explosive growth in our programs in taking veterans from around the country and transitioning them through a boot camp into startup businesses in a relatively short period of time. I think the answer to it is to not have a generic kind of slogan, but rather to focus very much on where the workplace and business needs are, and tailor programs that give people the right training and certifications for those fields in as short a period of time as possible, which requires breaking some of the traditional assumptions about what a degree is, how long you get a degree, and the way it is delivered. And that's what we're working on doing as a way to get people to Central New York and businesses started with them in Central New York.
Mr. Kerwin.
Thank you. I kind of feel like on the international side, I feel like the judge on So You Think You Can Dance and Baryshnikov just performed. So, you guys are nationally recognized for your efforts in this area and the leadership you provided with your team, Dan, over there, and a few others. And so certainly thank you for that model you presented to the rest of the country. One of the things I was going through your plan, and it's a similar question to some of my colleagues have had up here, is sort of the matching of the skills workforce or the skilled needs in the international area with your immigrant population and a few others. And if you could give me some more specifics on sort of what you're thinking about there and what your plans are to help develop that area.
It's a great question. We, in Central New York and in the Mohawk Valley, have been particularly fortunate to be designated centers for refugee relocation. Those skills, cultural awareness, the global sensitivity, the language skills in many cases, I think are really strong assets that we're in a position to leverage. I also think that one of the things that is often forgotten in the thought process around global engagement is the importance of academia and the role that higher education and foreign students play in building and growing our economy. And I know how important they are at Syracuse University and others. I don't know, Chancellor, if you want to speak to some of that, but figuring out how we tap into the skills of those students while they're here and leverage that into their professional and personal networks back at home is something that we're particularly focused on.
Yeah. So we have currently 6,000 foreign student visa holders in Central New York in the region, and 4,000 of them roughly at Syracuse University, but well distributed throughout the region. They bring to the economy more than $250 million a year So we're really an export industry for higher education, but we're trying to focus on viewing it as more than the immediate benefit from the spending and the tuition dollars, and how we can use this alumni network. Many of these students, indeed the vast majority, go back to their countries, but have a fondness for the region and can help us in business ties, including in exporting in other areas. And so coordinating that and building on that and having a strategy on that from the day they arrive, particularly in certain fields, is what we're working on doing as part of the strategy.
I'll share one anecdote from our trip to China. We were engaged with a high-level government official who runs one of the 6 districts in Beijing. And in the course of that conversation, he was explaining to our delegation about the importance of the experience that children of Chinese parents have when they travel internationally for education. And I hadn't thought about it in this context, but in a country that has had sort of one family, one child policies for such a long time, the child is such an important part of the cultural sort of familiar unit. And the experience that they have while in the United States, how they've been engaged, the extent to which they've been engaged, the relationships they've built are the way they were characterized to us is incredible entry points into their personal and professional networks back in their country. And I'm sure that is not just true in China, but other parts of the world. And that it's given us a way to reframe and rethink how we engage with that population of student.
Commissioner Maddox.
Good afternoon, and welcome aboard, Chancellor. I suspect you've already figured this out, but Rob, Jim, and the rest of the team really have been helping to set the pace in this process from literally day one. So if you haven't already seen this, I'm sure you will going forward, and welcome to the process.
I've already seen it.
A couple of comments and a question. The performance metrics slide, and I wanted to follow up on the Secretary's question with respect to the regional poverty rate. Unfortunately, we've seen worse over the course of the 2 days. New York City reported 21% poverty. The Finger Lakes yesterday afternoon noted communities within the region that are approaching a third. Would it be helpful in the total jobs category to think about breaking that out and perhaps using a threshold, and for lack of a better example, I'll call it a living wage threshold, and then to define the jobs in terms of above and below that threshold? Because clearly with respect to folks who are in poverty now, they are more likely than not, I would have thought, going to access the service and other entry-level jobs that are likely to be at or slightly above minimum wage. That's clearly quite different than some of the opportunities at some of the emerging medical centers and other economic expansions that are going on in the area. And then secondly, with respect to leadership, that clearly comes through in terms of the land bank, the venture fund. But I also recall, Rob, 2 years ago when you led the tour, and I believe it was St. Joseph's that you took us to, where you described a very innovative approach of combining affordable housing with job training to essentially seed folks into the expansion of the jobs. And I believe you had reported at the time it was 300 new jobs were being formed at St. Joseph's, and to essentially create an integrated approach. Any updates on that, and has the council thought about leveraging that? I mean, it sounded like a phenomenal idea at the time. We haven't heard much about it since, but it seemed like one that could be
let me
expanded.
take those in reverse order, if I may. Sure. The St. Joseph's Workforce Training Initiative that we showed you, I think, 2 years ago, was the original pilot program that has emerged into our Opportunity Agenda work. So it was really that demonstration that allowed us, that combined with the support that we received from the state of New York, that allowed us to leverage that $1 million in philanthropic commitment. And so now we are doing that not just in healthcare, but we're looking to expand into manufacturing. We're talking with employers right now about transportation and logistics. And to sort of speak to the first part of your question, we are very intentional about exploring these workforce development sort of dual client relationships in professions where there are above standard wages and where there are strong career ladders that would enable an individual to advance from an entry-level position into something further than that at some point in their life. So I think we're being pretty strategic in the way in which we're deploying those resources, but very proud of the fact that as a part of this opportunity agenda work recently, within the last 2 months, we were named as just the 40th site in the U.S. for the National Fund for Workforce Solutions, a coalition of workforce development and philanthropic partners around the U.S. That will only come and work in communities that have built this sort of dual client, community and employer sitting at the same table model. Speaking to the metrics, I think you offer I think it would be a useful way to look at the data. As we have explored applications for funding through this project, one of the questions that comes out in every single project is the average wage that's being paid in those. We're very focused on that. It is one of our key evaluation criteria as we consider whether or not to recommend state support for projects. And as you see, for the first time in a long time, our median wage has increased, our average wage has increased slightly over the course of the last 3 years, but we're still almost 18% below the national average here in upstate New York. So while we are moving in the right direction, we're not catching up nearly quickly enough. So I like the suggestion you made, and we'll take a look at that.
You know, I would just add, so having been through the first round, that was one of the things I noted, the degree to which particular projects were rejected. If the council concluded that the job creation was not jobs that would raise some of these metrics, but rather would lower them.
Just one quick question to sum up. Your New Air project, you are requesting a bit over $2 million from us, but you've indicated you are a finalist. Is that right? I mean, you don't have the project yet?
No, we received in January of this year, actually December 30th of last year, we received designation of one of 6 federally designated test sites for UAS technology in the U.S. So there was a 2-year competition leading up to that. We were selected as a winner.
I see.
So the Griffiths International Airport is home base in Rome, is home base to that test site, but the test range actually exists throughout the Central New York region. So we have the designation. What we're asking for is support not only through the Central New York Council, but through Mohawk Valley to install technology to allow that test site to have a leg up on all 5 of the other test sites around the country.
All right, I understand. All right, well,
It's two region.
yes, it is a 2-region project. We understand. Thank you very, very much. As usual, you've done an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you.